You believe you know people because you listen to what they say. You think words reveal intention, but words are the first layer of deception, the curtain on the stage. If you wish to predict anyone's moves, you must see the play for what it is, and more importantly, recognize the motives of the playwright. I will show you 18 tricks today that will shatter your illusions of honesty and trust, but you must be willing to see people as they truly are, not as they wish to appear. This is not for the soft-hearted who need comforting lies. This is for those who understand that power begins with clear vision. If you cannot bear to see the ugliness beneath polite smiles, turn away now. If you can, keep listening, because this clarity will make you dangerous in the most elegant way. First, understand this. Everyone has an angle. This is not cynicism, it is nature. The first psychological trick is to assume hidden interests. People do not act from noble neutrality. They act from self-preservation, self-advancement, self-image. When they flatter you, they want something: your approval, your alliance, your submission. When they show humility, they want safety, forgiveness, pity. The words may differ, the costumes may change, but the motive remains: gain or protection. Assume this as default, and you will stop being fooled by declarations of loyalty or promises of friendship. When you see two men shaking hands, do not see trust, see a bargain. When you hear someone confess a sin, do not see honesty, see strategy. Your task is not to reject everyone, but to look behind their words for the terms of their deal. This assumption does not breed paranoia, it breeds precision. The second trick is to listen for contradictions. This is where the mask slips. People are clumsy liars, not because they lack cunning, but because they cannot suppress the truth completely. Listen carefully, not just to what they say, but to how they say it. Their voice tightens when they approach danger. Their story alters slightly when retold. They claim they don't care, yet they obsessively seek validation. A contradiction is a confession. When someone preaches loyalty but gossips freely, you have seen their allegiances to themselves. When someone claims moral purity but laughs at cruelty, you have uncovered their appetite. Contradictions are the handwriting of their real script. Do not challenge them immediately. Let them talk. Let them add inconsistency upon inconsistency. Each layer of contradiction is a deeper level of access into their true intentions. The third trick is to read the reaction to silence. Silence is not absence, it is pressure. Apply it strategically. When you fall silent in conversation, you create a void people rush to fill. Nervous people explain too much. Defensive people attack or deflect. Arrogant people become visibly uncomfortable, forced to reckon with the lack of control. Watch them. They will reveal fears they don't even admit to themselves. A man who fears irrelevance will try to dominate the pause. A woman hiding guilt will stammer to justify what was never asked. Silence is your weapon because it is unnatural in social performance. It disrupts their lines, breaks the rhythm of their rehearsed persona. It gives you space to observe the fidgeting, the darting eyes, the swallowing throat. Never waste words when silence can do the work of 1,000 questions. If you learn these 3 tricks, assuming hidden interests, listening for contradictions, and using silence as a blade, you will move from blind participant to director of the play. You will see their moves before they make them, because you will know why they have no choice but to make them. Remember, prediction is not magic, it is understanding. Once you know the pressure points, the fear centers, the private insecurities, you can anticipate reactions as surely as knowing which way a tree will fall when you strike it. This is not cruelty, it is clarity. The world is run by those willing to see it without illusions. But I will warn you, there is a cost. When you see people clearly, you will find fewer to admire. You will hear the self-serving note in every promise. You will see the fear that drives every boast. You will understand that kindness is often currency, loyalty often convenience. But you will also know who can be trusted, not the flawless, but the consistent, not the perfectly moral, but the transparently self-aware. And you will be able to choose allies with your eyes open, rather than your hopes blinding you. Most people will never do this work. They prefer the comfort of believing in face value honesty. They want to be lied to preserve a sense of safety in their relationships. That is why so many are predictable, so easily manipulated, so constantly disappointed. They demand sincerity from the world while offering their own performance. Do not be like them. Study human nature the way a general studies terrain. Know the hills, the valleys, the traps. Prepare your strategy before you speak. Listen twice before you reveal your own interests. These 3 truths are only the beginning. By the time you learn all 18, you will see that people are not mysterious. They are systems with rules. They are animals with instincts. They are actors bound to a script. They barely know they are performing. Once you see the rules, you cannot unsee them. But the choice is yours, to remain comforted and blind, or to be awake and prepared. I offer you the latter. Take it and wield it carefully. The next truths will go deeper. But for now, let these 3 sharpen your sight, harden your discernment, and prepare you to see what others refuse to acknowledge. Now that your eyes are open to the first layers of deception, you must be prepared to go deeper. People do not only hide intentions behind words or slip up with contradictions. Their entire personalities are armor. The next 3 tricks will teach you to see through this armor and recognize the patterns that govern even the most subtle human moves. Because once you understand these deeper motives, prediction becomes effortless, not because you are reading minds, but because you understand the forces shaping them before they even speak. The 4th psychological trick is to recognize the display of virtue as a signal of vanity. When someone proclaims their goodness too loudly, when they seek applause for their morality, understand this: they are not proving their ethics, they are proving their superiority. Virtue becomes their stage and you their audience. They want you to see them as righteous, so you will ignore their hunger for control. This is why those who lecture most about honesty often lie with confidence. This is why the moral crusader rarely tolerates disagreement, because their power depends on the illusion of being unassailable. When you see excessive virtue signaling, don't be intimidated. See the hunger behind it. Recognize it as currency in the market of social approval. And know that those who are truly virtuous do not need to announce it. Their restraint is their strength. In prediction, this is invaluable. The more someone insists on their purity, the more they reveal the line they will not allow you to cross. Push there, and you will see their true face. The 5th trick is understanding that people lie to themselves before they lie to you. This is the most insidious defense mechanism. It is not the domain of the cunning manipulator. It is the reflex of the fragile ego. When someone tells you they're fine while their voice cracks, they are not deceiving you deliberately. They are protecting themselves from their own pain. They cannot bear to face the truth of their fear, their failure, their longing, so they construct a story convincing enough to believe. This is why their lies can be so consistent, so convincing. It is not a performance for you, but for themselves. To predict such a person, you must study these self-deceptions. Notice when their words don't match their history. Observe the gaps in their narrative. Realize that the rehearsed lines hide the wound they cannot admit. When you understand that people first lie to themselves, you stop treating inconsistency as betrayal and start seeing it as a map to their hidden fears. Prediction then is not about calling them out. It is about understanding what they will do to avoid the pain they refuse to name. The 6th psychological trick is to see claims of superiority as a sign of deep inferiority. The person who needs to remind you of their accomplishments, their power, their intelligence, is not showing you strength. They are confessing their fear of inadequacy. It is a performance to drown out the voice in their head that whispers, "You are not enough." This is why they dominate conversations, why they belittle others, why they flaunt what they have. Their mind is a battlefield where insecurity and ego clash daily, and their speech is the artillery they fire to keep the enemy at bay. When you see this, you stop being awed by dominance. You see the trembling child beneath the crown. This is power because it immunizes you to intimidation. When others freeze in the presence of arrogance, you remain calm, knowing their moves before they make them, because you know what they must protect at all costs, their fragile self-worth. If you master these 3 additional truths, you move from simply spotting deception to understanding the architecture of the self. You no longer see words in isolation, but as bricks in the wall someone builds to protect what terrifies them. The moral preacher may hide a desire for dominance. The consistent liar may hide from a truth they cannot bear. The boastful leader may be fighting ghosts of inadequacy every time they speak. Prediction becomes not about catching them in a lie, but anticipating their behavior because you understand their fear. And human fear is the most reliable predictor of human action. But this knowledge is not meant to make you cruel. It is meant to make you clear-eyed. Because when you see these patterns in others, you will begin to see them in yourself. You will notice the times you boasted to hide doubt. You will remember the lies you told yourself to keep going. You will hear the moral lectures you gave not to uplift but to control. And in that recognition, you will gain not only the ability to predict others, but the power to govern yourself. That is the true mastery Machiavelli demands, not the ability to manipulate others blindly, but to see them clearly while refusing to lie to yourself. Most people will never go this far. They will stop at simple observation, content to judge others while preserving their own illusions. But you will not. You will push further, because you know that only the disciplined mind can wield this understanding without becoming corrupted by it. You will learn to spot the virtue signal and choose silence over flattery. You will learn to hear self-deception and offer questions instead of condemnation. You will see through arrogance and choose strategy over intimidation. Because power is not taken, it is granted by those too blind to see you coming. So listen carefully, because this journey is not even halfway complete. You now hold 6 truths. 12 remain. Each one will strip away another layer of human illusion. Each one will bring you closer to seeing people as they are, predictable, patterned, driven by fears they barely comprehend. And in seeing them, you will see yourself. Remember, this is not about cruelty, though it can be used for it. It is about clarity. It is about power wielded with precision, not rage. So keep listening. Prepare yourself, because the next truths will go even deeper into the places where people reveal themselves, not through words or silence, but through the choices they don't even realize they are making. And now, having stripped away the easy lies and the conscious defenses, we reach the next layer, the places where people give themselves away, not with words, but with their instincts, their impulses, the cracks that appear when they can no longer hold the performance. This is where your understanding must become sharper, colder, more exacting, because these truths will not flatter you. They will ask you to look at humanity as a chessboard of fear and desire, where the pieces move according to rules that most refuse to even acknowledge. Master these and you will see their moves before they make them, not because you can read their minds, but because you know what their minds cannot help but do. The 7th psychological trick is to see that most actions are driven by unconscious fear. If you want to predict someone, ask yourself not what they want, but what they are afraid of losing. This question is sharper than any interrogation. Why does someone over-explain? Fear of being misunderstood. Why do they dominate a conversation? Fear of irrelevance. Why do they disappear when challenged? Fear of exposure. Humans rarely act from pure desire. They act to protect status, safety, belonging, self-worth. Even the most aggressive move is usually defensive at its root. Study fear and you will predict behavior with uncanny accuracy. The friend who always agrees with you is afraid of conflict. The lover who clings is afraid of abandonment. The boss who micromanages is afraid of chaos. People are transparent to those who know which fear governs them. And once you see the fear, you will know how they will act, because they will always choose the path that soothes it. The 8th trick is to watch how someone uses criticism. It is always a mirror. This is one of the most reliable tells of human psychology. When someone is harsh about others' arrogance, listen for the insecurity in their voice. When they rage about dishonesty, ask what truth they refuse to face. Projection is the most common form of confession. It is the ego's way of disowning what it cannot tolerate in itself. Understand this and you will see their attacks as maps to their pain. Criticism reveals values, but even more powerfully, it reveals fear. The man who cannot stop mocking emotional people is terrified of his own emotions. The woman who fixates on others' vanity is at war with her own reflection. When you listen, don't be distracted by their target. Trace the line back to them. Understand what they are trying to exile from their own identity. When you see someone who criticizes relentlessly, you know what they are trying to hide. Their insults are not weapons, they are shields. Break the shield and you will see the wound. The 9th psychological trick is to recognize that confidence is often a costume for guilt. This is subtler, but once you see it, you will never unsee it. There is a kind of person who performs certainty at all times. The one who has the answer for everything, who never admits doubt, who insists on their own authority with unshakable calm. Watch them. Under pressure, the cracks appear. The over-prepared speech, the defensive reaction to questions, the tension in the jaw, the rehearsed pauses. This is not real confidence. It is guilt buried under perfection. Perhaps they betrayed someone once. Perhaps they failed in a way they cannot forgive. Now they must always be right, always in control, because to admit imperfection would resurrect that shame. Machiavelli would tell you, when you see someone who cannot bend, suspect the guilt that made them so rigid. Real confidence is supple. It can laugh at itself, admit uncertainty, hold silence without fear. The performer cannot. Their certainty is a fortress they built to keep the past from breaking in. Predict them easily. They will always choose control over vulnerability. They will choose the lie over the confession, and they will collapse when they can no longer maintain the illusion. If you hold these three additional truths, you will no longer see people's personas as confusing or complex. You will see them as necessary adaptations to fear, guilt, and insecurity. You will know that the friend who overshares is asking for reassurance they cannot give themselves. You will know the critic who sees flaws everywhere is terrified of their own imperfection. You will know the boss who acts like a god is haunted by the knowledge they are human. And in knowing this, you will not be surprised. You will not be thrown off balance. You will simply watch them choose the same predictable moves again and again. But this is not meant to make you cruel or smug. This knowledge should make you patient, because you will see that what you used to call evil is often just fear. What you called arrogance is self-doubt in ceremonial robes. What you called dishonesty is the desperate lie someone told themselves to stay sane. You will predict them not to exploit them, but to see them, to recognize their humanity even when they hide it. To choose your strategy with eyes wide open, but also with a certain mercy that only understanding can grant. Most people refuse this level of clarity. They prefer to judge actions without examining motives. They call people toxic and move on, never asking why the poison exists. They brand others liars without wondering what truth they had to smother. But you will not be like them. You will understand that prediction is not guessing, it is diagnosis. And to diagnose someone truly, you must listen not to the words they choose, but to the fears they cannot name. So remember this as you continue. 9 truths now belong to you. 9 more remain. Each one will peel back another layer of the human facade until you see not just their moves, but the reasons they have no choice but to make them. Until you see not just their tactics, but their confessions. Until you see that people are never as mysterious as they want you to think. They are, instead, beautifully predictable once you understand what haunts them. And when you understand what haunts them, you begin to see the next set of patterns. The ones that emerge when people try too hard to convince you of something about themselves. Because the truly unbothered do not need to broadcast. The truly whole do not need to perform. The next 3 psychological tricks will help you recognize the volume of their performance as proof of what they're trying to silence within. Once you see this, you will no longer be seduced by big claims or grand gestures. You will know that what they shout the loudest is usually what they doubt the most. The 10th psychological trick is to spot exaggeration as a confession. People rarely tell you outright what they fear or desire, but they will exaggerate in precisely the places where their insecurity is loudest. The man who constantly claims he doesn't care what anyone thinks is screaming for approval. The woman who insists she's always happy is terrified of sadness. The friend who swears they always tell it like it is hiding the discomfort of their own dishonesty. Exaggeration is not just lying, it is the ego's last stand against doubt. Listen for these absolutes. When someone speaks in extremes, always, never, everyone, no one, they reveal the boundaries of their fear. Real confidence has no need for superlatives. It can admit nuance, accept contradiction, hold space for uncertainty. The more theatrical the statement, the more fragile the self-image it protects. So when you hear exaggeration, don't believe the words. Read the insecurity underneath. Ask, what are they trying so hard to drown out? The 11th trick is to understand that the desire for control always signals inner chaos. Humans crave control, not for its own sake, but to manage the fear of unpredictability within. The more someone micromanages, the more they betray their inability to manage themselves. The partner who polices every word you say is fighting their own spiraling doubts. The boss who demands absolute loyalty is haunted by betrayal they have never processed. The friend who needs to plan every detail of an evening fears the void where their own mind might wander. Control is not evidence of strength. It is proof of a fear that, if left unchecked, everything will fall apart. Machiavelli would tell you, let them have the illusion of control while you observe the terror it conceals. Because their fear of chaos will always dictate their next move. They will seek order at any cost, even if it means betraying their principles, even if it means harming those they claim to love. When you see this, you can anticipate how they will react to disruption. You can predict their need to restore the illusion of mastery, no matter what. The 12th psychological trick is to recognize performance as the mark of emptiness. Nothing reveals the hollowness of someone's core like the need to be seen constantly. Look at social media, and you will see this pathology in high resolution: the curated identities, the perfectly posed images, the relentless updates about virtue, happiness, success. These are not celebrations of reality, but desperate attempts to create a self that feels worthy of love. The louder the performance, the emptier the core. Those who know themselves do not need to be watched. They do not need applause to feel real. But the one who performs endlessly fears that without the show, they will disappear. This is true offline too. The person who dominates every conversation, who insists on being the center of attention, who crafts their narrative for maximum admiration, they are haunted by the suspicion that without constant validation, they are nothing. When you see this, you stop envying the loudest in the room. You see their need. You see the hunger that will never be sated, no matter how many eyes they attract. And you know they will always act to preserve the stage, even if it means sacrificing truth, loyalty, or dignity. If you understand these 3 additional truths, you will see the performance in others with clinical precision. You will recognize that when someone brags about never being afraid, they are terrified, that when they plan obsessively, they fear their own unpredictability, that when they perform their life for an audience, they are trying to fill a void that applause can never satisfy. This is not cruelty, it is clarity. Because once you see the machinery behind the mask, you can choose how to interact with it. You can withhold the validation they crave to watch them reveal their true self. You can disrupt their control to see their rawest fear. You can ignore the performance to see who they are when no one is watching. This is the heart of prediction, not memorizing what people say, but knowing what they cannot help but do. But know this, to see others this clearly, you must first see yourself. You must ask, where do I exaggerate? What am I trying to convince others of? Where do I seek control to hide my own chaos? Where do I perform so I don't have to face my emptiness? Because you are not above these tricks. You are built of the same fragile hopes and dark fears. And if you cannot see them in yourself, you will never see them honestly in others. Worse, you will use these insights to harm, to exploit, to feed your own vanity. That is not mastery, that is corruption. Machiavelli understood that the highest power is not in destroying others, but in refusing to lie to yourself. Most will never do this work. They will dismiss this clarity as cynicism. They will insist on seeing the performance and applauding it. They will reward control as leadership, exaggeration as passion, performance as authenticity. And they will be shocked when these same people betray them, collapse, or turn cold. You will not be shocked. You will see it coming. Not because you wish it, but because you accepted what human nature is. That acceptance is your edge. It is the difference between being used and using, between being confused and being prepared. So carry these 12 truths carefully. 6 more await you. Each will bring you even closer to seeing people as they are, not as they hope you will see them. Each will ask you to trade comfort for clarity, illusion for power. And when you have all 18, you will not just predict people's moves, you will understand the blueprint of their soul. And as you hold these 12 truths in your mind, you begin to notice what others miss entirely. The ways people try to hide their wounds by proclaiming their logic, their certainty, their self-sufficiency. The next 3 psychological tricks will guide you even further into the territory where words are no longer tools of persuasion but shields against pain. Because people don't just perform for others, they perform for themselves. And the most convincing lie they tell is the one designed to soothe their own fear. The 13th psychological trick is this. No one speaks purely from logic, they speak from pain. Listen carefully to the arguments people make, the beliefs they defend with righteous fervor. You might think they are guided by reason, but that is an illusion. Beneath every logical stance is an emotional wound. The person who says love is a fantasy is not citing evidence. They are protecting themselves from heartbreak they never recovered from. The one who insists that trust is foolish has been betrayed so deeply they built a fortress of skepticism to keep the world at bay. When you want to predict someone's move, don't just ask what they believe, ask what they're afraid of repeating. This shift will change everything. Instead of debating their logic, you will see the wound that birthed it. Instead of being surprised by their resistance, you will anticipate it as the reflex of old pain. This is not manipulation, it is understanding, and it will give you power, not because you can defeat them in argument, but because you will know exactly what they are trying to avoid. The 14th trick is to observe how someone responds to weakness, because that reaction reveals their true strength. Anyone can perform kindness when it costs them nothing. Anyone can act noble when they are dealing with an equal, but true character is exposed in how they treat those who cannot fight back. The person who mocks vulnerability is terrified of their own. The leader who punishes mistakes harshly is reliving the punishment they once received. Machiavelli would tell you, real power is restraint. The one who can sit with someone's fear without needing to dominate it is stronger than any conqueror. Prediction here is simple. When you see someone deride weakness, you know they will flee from their own. When you see someone unable to forgive small errors, you know they will sacrifice loyalty for control. The person who humiliates the powerless is revealing their own captivity to fear. Watch them with care, because when the moment comes where compassion is an option, they will show you exactly who they are. The 15th psychological trick is to see that those who fear being forgotten will always chase attention. This is one of the oldest truths of human nature. The person who must always be noticed is haunted by the terror of being invisible. The child who was ignored grows into the adult who cannot bear silence, who fills every space with noise, drama, spectacle. You will see them everywhere. The friend who interrupts every story to tell their own. The lover who manufactures crises to remain central in your mind. The influencer whose every post screams, "Look at me." They don't want admiration, they need it like oxygen. Because without the eyes of others upon them, they fear they do not exist. To predict these people is easy. They will always choose the path that guarantees attention. They will betray alliances if it means a bigger stage. They will destroy stability for drama that keeps them in focus. They will sacrifice depth for applause, and they will resent anyone who sees through this need, because you threaten the illusion that keeps them alive. If you master these 3 additional truths, your vision will become even sharper. You will hear someone's ironclad argument and know it is the sound of a wound they refuse to treat. You will watch a boss berate a subordinate and know it is their own fear of weakness on display. You will see the social butterfly, the relentless self-promoter, and recognize the abandoned child screaming not to be left behind. This knowledge is not meant to make you cruel. It is meant to inoculate you against surprise, because you will know that people do not act at random. They act out their pain with clockwork precision, and when you understand their pain, you will know their next move. But be warned, there is a danger in this clarity. When you can see the wound behind every boast, the fear behind every cruelty, you may be tempted to excuse everything, to become so understanding that you surrender your boundaries. That is not the purpose here. Machiavelli never advised blind forgiveness. He advised clear vision. This understanding allows you to predict, to strategize, to choose your response with purpose. It is not softness, it is precision. It allows you to see when someone cannot be trusted, not because they are evil, but because they are too wounded to act differently. It allows you to withhold condemnation, while also withholding unearned loyalty. Most will never see this. They will continue to fight over surface-level disagreements, unaware of the pain that drives them. They will call others cruel without asking what made them hard. They will demand love while offering performance, and they will be surprised again and again when the people they trust act out the very fears they refuse to confront. But you will not be surprised, you will not be confused, because you chose to understand. You chose to watch closely, listen deeply, and trade illusions for truth. So carry these 15 truths carefully. They are not weapons to hurt others. They are tools to see them. They are not scripts for manipulation, but maps for navigation. And they are not just about others, they are about you. Because if you see exaggeration in others, you must ask where you exaggerate. If you see fear of being forgotten in them, you must ask what silence terrifies you. If you see harshness toward weakness in someone else, you must ask how you treat your own vulnerability. This is the price of true prediction. You cannot unsee yourself once you learn to see others. There are 3 more truths to uncover. 3 final keys that will complete this framework. Each will ask you to look even deeper into the patterns people act out without awareness. Each will reveal not just how to see others, but how to anticipate them with a calm that feels like prophecy. And when you hold all 18 in your mind, You will never again be fooled by words or distracted by performance. You will see the design beneath the chaos. And when you're ready to see the design beneath the chaos, you will be prepared for the final three truths. These are the ones that expose the roots of behavior so deep most people refuse even to look at them. Because while it's easy to see someone's boast or lie, far harder is to see the child who learned to survive by becoming someone else entirely. If you want to predict people not just in moments of stress but over a lifetime, you must understand that their patterns are not accidents. They are repetitions, they are old scripts, and they will keep performing them until the day they die, unless they are forced to confront them. The 16th psychological trick is to recognize that the person they attack is often the person they envy. This is one of the ugliest but most reliable truths about human nature. People rarely admit envy directly. It is too humiliating to say, "I want what you have," so they transform admiration into contempt. They criticize what they wish they could embody. They tear down what they fear they can never attain. Watch someone who is constantly insulting the successful, and you will see someone who fears they will never succeed. Watch the person who mocks confidence. They are mourning their own cowardice. Envy is unspoken desire wrapped in denial. Prediction here is simple. If you want to know what someone wants most, look at what they hate without mercy. Their attacks are coded confessions. The louder they criticize, the deeper the longing they cannot allow themselves to feel. Once you know this, you can see who will sabotage others out of spite, who will turn on friends when those friends grow, who will undermine teams to avoid feeling small. You will know exactly when and why betrayal will happen, not because they're evil, but because they cannot tolerate being reminded of their own abandonment of self. The 17th trick is that people don't act out their beliefs, they act out their childhood. This is perhaps the most brutal truth of all. Most people think they are making choices as adults, guided by rational principles or personal ethics, but they are simply playing the roles they learned to survive as children. The one who never listens was never listened to. The one who performs for love learned they had to earn it to feel safe. The one who punishes any show of emotion was punished for their own. And so they repeat it endlessly, dragging the past into every room, every conversation, every relationship. Prediction at this level is seeing that the argument in front of you is rarely about the present. It is about a parent they could never please, a rejection that scarred them so deeply they built an entire personality to avoid it happening again. When you watch someone shut down when asked to be vulnerable, you are seeing the child who learned vulnerability meant punishment or ridicule. When you see someone explode at being corrected, you are seeing the child who was shamed for mistakes. If you want to see people clearly, ask, who did they have to become to survive? Because they will always return to that role when they feel threatened. They cannot help it, and when you know their role, you can predict their move as surely as a chess master anticipates the forced moves of a cornered opponent. The 18th and final psychological trick is this. Their patterns are a confession if you know how to listen. Because while people may hide their wounds with words, their behaviors tell the truth again and again. The person who ghosts you when things get close isn't just unreliable, they're confessing they fear real connection. The one who overworks to avoid stillness is confessing that their thoughts terrify them. The flirt who charms everyone but connects with no one is confessing that intimacy feels like death. These are not random quirks, they are protective rituals. They are saying without saying, this is how I keep myself safe. And if you want to predict them, stop listening to their excuses and start watching the ritual. The moment you see the pattern clearly, you will know the moment it will repeat. You will know when they will run, when they will attack, when they will betray. Not because you are a mind reader, but because you are reading the book they are writing in actions they don't even realize they're signing. If you hold these last three truths, you will see that people are not mysteries to be solved, but systems to be understood. You will see that envy is the shadow of longing, that childhood is the script for adulthood, that patterns are the confessions of the fearful. And in knowing this, you will be able to see them with a precision that feels almost cruel. But this clarity is not meant to break them. It is meant to set you free, free from confusion, free from betrayal, free from the naive belief that people act from pure intentions rather than old survival mechanisms they can barely name. But this knowledge also asks something of you. It demands you turn it inward, because you too attack what you envy. You too repeat the roles you learned before you had words to question them. You too have patterns that are your confession. If you can see these in others, you must see them in yourself. That is the final act of power, not domination over others, but understanding of the self, so profound that no one can manipulate you with the wounds you refuse to acknowledge. Machiavelli would tell you that mastery over others is nothing if you remain a mystery to yourself. Most will refuse this final step. They will be content to use these tricks to see others while staying blind to their own scripts. They will turn this knowledge into a weapon for blame, never realizing that true strategy begins with honesty. But you will not, because you did not listen this far to remain like everyone else. You listened to become dangerous in the most elegant way possible. Dangerous not because you harm, but because you see. Dangerous not because you control, but because you refuse to be controlled. So hold these 18 truths like a map. Use them to navigate a world of masks and performances. Use them to predict the moves of those who think they are unreadable. And most of all, use them to read yourself with unflinching clarity. Because in the end, that is the greatest power of all. To know the truth so well you can no longer be fooled by it, even when it's your own. If you've made it this far, it means a part of you is already prepared to see the world and yourself without illusions. It means you're no longer satisfied with cheap validation or easy lies. You know that being accepted means nothing if you have to betray who you really are. True self-respect begins the moment you choose yourself, even if it costs you comfort, even if it costs you company. And don't stop here. Watch the next video. It matters more than you think. I'll see you there.